G'day guys, how's it going? So in this video, we're going to look at something called enums in Rust. Now, what is an enum? Well, in short, an enum is a type like a struct, but it's slightly different in the sense of it doesn't actually capture fields, it captures different options that type can be. All right. So it's probably better just to quickly show an example. But let's have a look at the code that we have here. So we've got our player struct, we've got an implementation to create that player, and then we've got some code that basically creates one player and prints it, right? So let's say we wanted to add to this player a level, right? So they could be a beginner, they could be intermediate, or they could be advanced, right? Now we could come in here, we could do something like level and make it a string, and then basically in the code down here, we could go level is equal to beginner, right? And that needs to be a string, actually. String from beginner. Cool. Now that works, and that will actually get printed out if we run the code and we see what's down here. We can see level is beginner, but it's not the most flexible way of doing it, right? Because we're in this position where we have to make sure that wherever we are in the code, we always need to make sure the spelling is correct for the string. And then if we change it to say intermediate, all right, we need to make sure this is correct. You know, maybe somewhere else in the code it's spelled like that, and therefore it's no longer valid. And these are the kind of issues you have when you try to store some kind of status or level, in this case, with strings, right? So that's why this enum is in play. So basically, to create an enum, we just use the enum keyword, right? Like so, and then we give it a name. So in this case, we're going to call it level, right? Now, what goes in this list are the three options I just mentioned. So we have a beginner level, comma, an intermediate level, and then we'll say pro, okay? Now, I'm going to also add this derive debug so we can debug it. Otherwise, the program will complain. But now that we've done this, all right, we have an option of three values, right? So if I come down here and set level to now be just a level instead of string, when we create the player, we now need to set it to one of three values. And we do that by going level, colon, and then you can see it's either beginner, intermediate, or pro, right? So if I try to set it to something else, like say advanced, right, it's not going to let us do this because advanced is not one of the options that's inside this level enum. All right, so we have to give it one of the options in there. Same as we can't use none or anything else that we can think of. We have to restrict it to those three. So I can type here beginner, for example, and this will compile just fine. Or I can set it to intermediate, and that will compile just fine. And then obviously pro, right? So for the purpose of this video, when we construct a new player, I think they probably should be a beginner. So I'll just set it like that. And then pretty much everything else, as long as we're using derive debug to do debug printing, we can come down and basically when we run this, you'll see that we have a level and it's just hard coded as beginner, right? There's no quotes, it's not a string, it just says beginner, okay? Cool. So that is a very simple example of how to create an enum in Rust. Now, in upcoming videos, we're going to look at how we can use this enum to make some decision making, as well as we can look at some other things that enums can do for us. We're going to end the video here, and I'll see you all in the next one.